So well, we go with the second day of the challenge. Today, the challenge is going to be dedicated to pelvic floor. So I'm sure most of you already know what your pelvic floor is, and especially if this is your second pregnancy, you might know what I'm talking about. Our pelvic floor, well, I have my pelvis here. So you can see, well, this is a female pelvis, and you can see here how is our pelvic floor. So you can see this should be our urethra, vagina, and anus. And then you can see our pelvic floor has the fibers have different directions, and we also have different layers within the pelvic floor. Okay, so what happens when we're pregnant is that our pelvic floor is going to support a weight that it hasn't been supported before. There's also pressure on the bladder because the uterus is lying on the bladder, so we're gonna have lots of pressure and lots of we probably feel that we want to go for a wee more often than normal. And also because we have two hormones that are quite high in pregnancy, which are relaxin and progesterone. And these two hormones, their objective is to keep the body soft and relaxed, so the body can expand and open, especially our uterus and all the soft tissue around the pelvis. So that's more or less the reasons why we're going to feel that we need to go for a wee more often, and also they might trigger urinary incontinence. So that's why it's really important to keep our pelvic floor muscles strong, and also for the postnatal period to have the pelvic floor already in a good condition. Those are the main reasons why we need to work our pelvic floor. If you feel you have any pelvic floor issues, or you feel you're having problems retaining the urine, or if you have any leakage, what I can recommend you the most is to go and see a women's health physiotherapist before you start doing any type of pelvic floor exercises, because we need to know what's happening with your pelvic floor, if it's too strong or if it's too relaxed, if there's any nerve problem or any tears that haven't been healed in a proper way. So we really need to know what's happening with your pelvic floor in order to prescribe what kind of exercise or procedure is best for you. So well, if you are not having any pelvic floor issues and either you're pregnant or in the postnatal period, it's important to keep working our pelvic floor muscles. Okay, that's a must for all of us. So to perform a really good pelvic floor contraction, here you can see a pelvis, and I always teach this to my moms. We have to locate 4 different points in your pelvis, so you can palpate them because they are bony parts, so it's quite easy to find them. So this is our symphysis pubis, okay, and we can find it, as you see, in the front of the pelvis. Okay, so it's quite a thick bone. We are able to touch it. Then we have, this is the back of our pelvis. This is our, what we call it normally, tailbone, or the proper name is coccyx. So I want you to think about your pubic bone and your coccyx, okay? So we can imagine a straight line going from the pubic bone to the coccyx and all the way back as well. So those are 2 of our 4 points, and then the other 2 points are our sit bones, okay, or ischiums. That's the proper name, but I'll keep it sit bones because we all call them in that way, and we call them sit bones because those are the bones where we should be sitting on when we are sitting down, okay, and those are the bones that we feel when we might be sitting in a really hard surface. So to perform a really good contraction, what we should do is to engage these 4 points together towards the center of the pelvic floor, and then feel that we are lifting the pelvic floor, okay? It's quite important that we don't squeeze the pelvic floor, because normally when we think about squeezing something, we think about pushing it down, and what we want is to lift the pelvic floor. Really, really important to do that in the way and that you feel you're kind of wrapping up the pelvic floor and lifting it up. Okay, so well, basic contraction. I want you to breathe in and just feel relaxed. So nothing is happening. We breathe in normal, and as you breathe out, I want you to feel and think about those 4 points: our pubis, our coccyx, and both sit bones. Bring them together and lift up your pelvic floor as we breathe out. In our next breath in, I just want you to relax. So that should be how normal contractions should work. And then we have 2 types of contractions. We have slow ones and fast ones. The slow ones, the difference is just that we sustain them a little bit of time. We hold the contraction. So we breathe in. As we breathe out, we engage and lift, and we hold the contraction for between 6 and 10 seconds while we keep breathing. That's the challenging part. And then we relax our pelvic floor. And fast contractions, we just engage and release as fast as we can, but we have to be sure that before engaging the pelvic floor again, the pelvic floor has been relaxed. Okay, so we engage and then we release, and we have to make sure that the pelvic floor is being released before the next contraction. Okay, so well, you're gonna have a few exercises to do because this is the basic, but we can progress them, and we can isolate the pelvic floor in so many different ways. So that's what you're gonna see in the exercise routine for today. And well, I didn't mention about the postnatal period. That's also important. Even if you didn't have any tears or any episiotomy, or you had a C-section, it's really important to keep doing our pelvic floor muscle training, because especially if we went through the pushing stage, even if we ended up having a C-section, we've been pushed against the pelvic floor, and it can be a little bit weak because of that. And also because it has been seen in research that we might not have any pelvic floor problems in the first years after the pregnancy, but that can happen in a long term. So what we are doing is preventing having any pelvic floor issues later in our life. And as I was saying before, if you suspect you have any pelvic floor problems or any pelvic floor issues, go to a women's health physiotherapist, please, because it's really, really important to keep a really good pelvic health. And if you don't know where to go or who to call, just drop me a message, and well, depending on the area, I might be able to signpost you to a good women's health physiotherapist. Well, ladies, I hope you've learned with this video. I know it's a little bit long, so I hope you're still listening to me, and then I'll see you in the exercise routine for today. Bye bye.